Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Whitney Ziegler. I'm the founder and CEO of Big Rocks Organizing. We are a small, locally owned LGBTQIA certified company. We are professional organizers and move managers, and we also do estate cleanouts based in Portland, Oregon. And I'm so excited so this month we're talking about organizing your craft room and art studio. I know we have a lot of creatives among our community and in our team as well. So tonight we have Maddie and Karin from our team, and they're shooting live from Karin's friend's art studio. So thank you to Karin's friend for letting us film in their space. With that, I'm going to take it over to you two. Although I think we wanted to ask folks what kind of arts and crafts supplies they have, like what your medium is that you work in, and what you might be feeling challenged by or looking for solutions for as far as right sizing and organizing. So if folks wouldn't mind, you could put it in the chat. You could do a quick shout out. We're just curious to learn a little bit more about you and the medium that you work in.
I have a sewing room and it's currently sitting in about 30 boxes in my current kitchen, and it's going to get moved in next week. And so I'm looking for ideas how to unpack it the most organized way.
Is it mostly fabric in the boxes, or do you have all kinds of notions and pins and needles and all sorts of stuff in there?
I'm a quilter. I have everything.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about those. Anybody else have something they're really excited about, something they use? We got painters, do we have sculptors,
Yeah.
ceramists?
In the chat, we've got quite a lot being dropped in here. Paints, tons of yarn, full collage cards. It takes lots of materials, yarn, knitting supplies, books, patterns, needles, accessories, printmaking, carving, ink and paper, painting and drawing plus sewing, paint studio for flow art. Anybody else want to throw anything else out there? This is a wide range.
I'm a multi-quilter, crafter. I quilt and have a sewing room, but all the fabrics in the basement. I have cabinets full of crafts from all the things I created for my kids growing up and now my grandkids. So anywhere from popsicle sticks to pom-poms to paints. So I have a lot of cabinets full of stuff and a basement full of stuff, and I'm trying to downsize.
Okay.
So thinning that all out is what I'm trying to figure out and how to organize the fabrics.
Yeah.
Good. We also have scrapbooking and card making dropped in the chat, and then papers in an office.
Okay. Well, we're lucky because today we're in Olivia Del Gandio's and Garland Hansen's art and studio room, and they, between the two of them, do basically everything. So I can see sewing stuff around me. I've got some collage materials. We've got pens. Some of it I'll take out and get to see. But yeah, I think we'll have a pretty good example on how to talk about most things. And if I don't get to something that you're really excited about hearing about, then let us know. Typically, when we would come into a space, we really love doing craft spaces at Big Rocks when we organize with people. And if you were working with us, one thing that we would start to do, we'd encourage people not to buy a bunch of bins before they do the organizing and the sort of the right sizing, just because you don't necessarily know what you need. And then a lot of people end up with a stack of unused plastic store containers that they actually turns out I needed all big ones or I needed all little ones or whatever that is. So I have some paper bags that I grabbed, and to go through first and pull items by type, we can separate them into bigger containers like a box or a grocery bag. And then once we see kind of how much of that category we have, then we can figure out what the best
Container.
Thank you. Container is for it. So that's one thing that we would do. And I can see here, like, we've got a pool floaty that maybe doesn't go in this, unless you were going to make a really fun tutu out of it. Probably doesn't go in this room. So taking out all the things that, thank you, don't belong here so that we can focus on our most crafty stuff, it's really easy to get into the flow. I think someone already used the word flow, and sort of just want to throw things around when you're working. So the more simple your containers can be, the easier it will be for you to actually use them. Because if you have a box, if you have all of your clips for sewing in a box that has a lid and a latch, you're not gonna put those back every time you pull them off your sewing machine or off your fabric. You're probably just gonna drop them wherever they are. Um, so having an open container like this is a situation where an open container is a good thing.
Also, having them be
Clear one.
clear is a big help because, for example, so who's promotions this again? Olivia?
Olivia.
Olivia uses colored pencils, and what's genius about the way that she's put them in this clear bin, and she can see, even though it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's like stacked 7 deep. She can see immediately what color she's looking for because they all come up against the end of this container.
Right. And the craft room is definitely a place where taking things out of their original container can be really helpful. Oftentimes, when you buy colored pencils, they're in those like paper cardboard boxes, and the little flaps get all weak and they start to fall out of the bottom or they get crushed, and then it just makes it even harder to put them back in space. So having something like that, like you said, the clear and open top, it's just easier to put them back in instead of trying to fuss with the original packaging.
And we call that decanting, like wine.
True. And so something like this, I know I get so frustrated by any container that sewing needles. Can you see that? Sewing needles usually come in, but it's hard to know how to keep them in a way that's not you're not going to step on them. And if you keep your sewing stuff pretty static, maybe it makes sense to have your pin cushion for what you're using in the moment, but to store your excess. I use actually like an empty. It's like a travel Tylenol case that doesn't have Tylenol in it anymore, but it has a lid and it's just tall and skinny, a little cylinder. That's what I put my needles in, or I have like a canister that used to have mini M&Ms in it. It has the little flip top, and so that way they're not like poking through anything, but they can stay in there, and you don't have to deal with like the original packaging, which can be kind of annoying.
And I didn't want to buy a pin cushion, so I took a sock and balled it up and then put that in another sock and tied it off to make an orb, and I stuck my pins in that.
How crafty. Yeah, anything could be a pin cushion. One other thing to note is that I think it's great to keep your scraps, whether that be paper, fabric like this. I think oftentimes people use that to sort of stuff things if it's fabric, or if you're collaging, you want those little pieces of paper. I definitely don't discourage people from keeping their scraps, but I think having a sort of a limit, a spatial limit for yourself, and a place to put them so that you can put them right in there and not have them floating around everywhere. That happens a lot, and then they get lost and you can't use them. So when you have something like scraps and they start to grow out of their container, you have a few options. You could get a larger container, or you might have to go through and start doing some of that right sizing and decide, I don't think I'm going to use the denim pieces, or maybe you decide, well, I'm going to do a project with those right now because I have too much stuff. Or you recognize the scraps are going to be abundant. They're going to keep flowing. I probably can get rid of some of these and trust that new scraps are going to show up. And personally, I think it can be really useful to use your trash can in your craft space for those scraps, but then not be afraid to dig back through the trash. As long as you're not throwing like banana peels and coffee cups in there. If your craft trash can be an extra material space while it's still while everything's still in there, I think that can be really helpful. But then when it's getting full, then you take the trash out and you just got to trust that those things are going to show back up.
It's good to have an abundance mindset in crafting.
Yeah. And a lot of people talked about like right sizing your craft supplies, or maybe you have more than you might really need or you might be able to get to. Or it might be that you have so much stuff that you can't get to the sewing machine, or it's just overwhelming and you don't want to go in there and draw. In Portland, we're really lucky to have Scrap, which is sort of a secondhand craft supply store, which is a great place to shop, of course, but also a good place to donate. I wonder if maybe someone on the other side of the computer screen could drop their either the Scrap website or their donation hours. But knowing that if you're giving away those items, they're not just going to get like lost on the shelves of a Goodwill. They're going to go to someone else who really is going to be excited to make something out of your excess craft supplies that you might not need anymore. And then also knowing that if I needed another red colored pencil, I could probably get one at Scrap for 5 cents. It kind of helps with that abundance mindset. Like those things are available, but we don't have to necessarily like be buying all new stuff from Amazon. We can go somewhere like Scrap. We got
And we don't need to keep things like just in case, right?
right.
It's also great to have. I love these stacking. Oh, one moment, please. I need to put this on do not disturb.
While you're doing that, Maddie, Jill also shared in the chat that Reclaim It is a great local nonprofit to donate to or purchase supplies from.
Yeah, they're another one that have a lot of great craft supplies, and a lot of other stuff, fun stuff too. But
So I'm a huge fan of drawers. I think anybody with a kitchen can appreciate the value of drawers versus cabinets. And so any kind of stackable drawer system is really great for crafting because usually you often have a lot of small things that you can get lost. And so having something like this where you can stack all kinds of, this is a sewing thing, right?
yeah, that's a bobbin.
It's a bobbin. So having your little bobbin drawer versus having your drawer for pins versus having your drawer for sewing threaders, yarn needles,
Tapestry needles, and you're
etc. But I'm just a huge fan of these stackable ones, and some of them are designed so that you can get more and stack them on top of those. So it's like infinity stackable.
infinity drawers. And I'll just show maybe one other. Liv also has like a kind of a pegboard with nails stuck in it. I think it was kind of a toy when I was a kid. You just put rubber bands around it. It was one of my favorite toys. But it can also hold bobbins on the little threaders, and people have those. I'm losing all my words today. Thread spool organizers that have all the little dowels on them, and those can be really useful too. Let's see.
Oh, Marion says that the Reclaim It's website is saying they don't take fabric scraps.
Okay, yeah. I think maybe just larger pieces. They're kind of
Or
limited.
it's changed. I think it used to be a yard minimum.
Yeah, I think it's still a yard or more that they'll accept. They just don't want like little tiny pieces.
Yeah, the little tiny pieces we typically recycle.
Yeah, we can do textile recycling through Goodwill, or there's some other programs that do textile recycling.
Ridwell for those who still have access to it.
Ridwell's a great one. Let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, I was gonna show some cool. This one spins. So this is mostly adhesives in this one. I like to keep my glues and my tapes together because in my mind that makes sense. And I keep my scissors and X-Acto knives and things like that together. So if you do have shelves and fewer drawers, something like this on a lazy Susan is really spectacular. Um, I'll put it back there. And one thing for some of these, like, uh, Liv also does a good amount of quilting. So for the smaller pieces that she's going to use again, we might encourage like a back of the door shoe organizer with the clear pockets. And then we could put like smaller fabric bundles into there so you can see what you have, but it's kind of out of the way. And that would also work for lots of other kinds of supplies if you had yarn. I know a lot of us, if we have yarn, we have a lot of yarn. And one thing that's helpful is to have, instead of having it sort of just everywhere, if you have, again, like a certain size container, once it starts overflowing from that one container, then you can either,
Like this.
yeah, like we've got threads here. You can see that. And if we started to overflow this pink bucket, then maybe we would have to decide what's the best way to dissect this collection. Maybe I would probably go with like cool colors and warm colors. If you get even past that, maybe you have a neutrals and you have a cool and you have a, or if it makes more sense to you to sort them by the material, if you use different like weights of thread and it makes sense for you to have those in separate containers, rather than just sort of like haphazardly overflowing into two containers that have kind of the same category, because then you'll end up losing what you're looking for. People end up like buying a lot of duplicates for things because there's one over there, there's one over here. You can't see all of it at the same time in one category.
We can also make trade-offs and keep our threads into one bin if we start overflowing.
To make some of those hard decisions and say, maybe I don't need this one, but I'll keep these. Is that what you're saying, Whitney?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works with children's artwork as well.
Yeah, giving yourself a set space and then maybe even before you start to look at all of your materials, if you say, like, I think this container is a reasonable amount of thread for me to have based on how often I use thread, then as I start to pull and realize that I have more than that, then I'll have to make some of those decisions. But rather than deciding what size is reasonable after I've looked at everything, kind of making that decision ahead of time for how much you want to keep. And that can also be related to how much space you have. If you have a craft room, or if you have, a section of your closet and you pull things out and work on your kitchen table, or if you have a whole mansion for crafts. I don't know who's in the Zoom room. Maybe you do.
Jill shared a helpful tool that works for her for quarter or half yard pieces. She found a 4-drawer filing cabinet to make it easy and nothing falls down. She used the file folders to fold the fabric over the file folder.
That's
Hopes that makes sense for folks.
Yeah, and similarly, if you have larger pieces of fabric and you want to hang them, if you have a closet space or a bar, or if you can use a garment rack and you want to either the traditional shape of hanger or the kind of pants hangers that have the clips, and then you can see your material that way and kind of flip through it like it's clothes, and then it doesn't get quite as wrinkly as if we have them in piles. But we got to do what we got to do.
Another thing is vertical storage. So, for example, if we've got a bunch of construction paper, that may end up as a stack on a shelf or something, but then you have to rifle through it and see what color you want. But vertical storage has a much smaller footprint, and so it's more space efficient. And here it's really easy to see and select what color paper you want to use.
Yeah, I could pull out a purple piece without ruining the entire stack or the entire set. Whereas if I had it on a laying down on a table, you're right, I would probably get paper everywhere. And I can put it down
Just like that.
just like that.
Gwen also shared that she used to hang long pieces of fabric scraps over hangers by color. Nice.
Whoa. We've got a tackle box full of beads.
Yes.
And actually that maybe is a good if you do want, can you see that? This type of very small compartment containers, sometimes like a tool or tackle style box is really pretty similar to what they'd sell for bead organization, but is usually cheaper. So if you're going to Home Depot and you want to get yourself sort of like an organizer that's meant for screws, uh, it'll probably be less than it would be at Michael's.
But I wouldn't store this vertically. I just wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, it could be hard to. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see that this one is taped closed, so that's probably
Yeah,
been an
There's a
issue
lot of
before.
tape. They're storing it vertically. They obviously haven't seen this segment yet.
No, somebody learned the hard way, and that's why it's taped shut.
That's a great point.
I just want to add really quickly that they are absolutely always cheaper. Like if you get them for tackle or tools than they are if you were to get them at Michael's or something like that. Also, that's what I used to store my earrings because I do have tons of beads and I always like make things that I don't really need. And when I wind up with excess, like they all go in there by color. So those are good for earrings and any small items, really.
That's great. Yeah, and they usually are a little sturdier too when you get like the tackle box kind. A lot of times when we go into people's homes and they're creatives, they have many different works in progress all at the same time, which is very fun to see, but can be pretty overwhelming and can really get out of hand and things can get lost. So, this is maybe another area where if you give yourself a set amount of, let's say, if you were going to use your grocery bags or if you had a bin and you say, I'm allowed to have 4 works in progress at a time, or I'm allowed to have 3 works in progress at a time. Or maybe that number could be very different for you, depending on your space and how quickly you work. And then you have those designated spaces for, let's say, like the yarn for the knitting project. Maybe you have specific other little pieces that you need for that project as it's going. And then you get really excited about something else and you move towards another project. That's okay. But once you run out of your designated kind of parking spots for those works in progress, then you have to, again, make one of those hard decisions where maybe I don't get to start this next project until I finish this one. Maybe I decided I'm actually not interested in this at all. It's too hard, or it's just not, it's boring to me now. I'm gonna get rid of that one so I have this space empty again for this new project that I'm now excited about. So sort of, it's easy to forget how many things you have going at once. In that case, I probably still would keep my like durable tools in their away place separate from the box of does that make sense, the work in progress. Like I probably wouldn't keep my crochet hook in there. I'd probably keep it with all my other tools, especially if I wasn't bouncing back to that quite as often.
Yeah, you
So-
might forget that it's in that bag, and then you go.
And then you might get a second or a
Yeah,
third.
and then you buy another one because you can't find it. Yeah.
So I have a bunch of stackable bins that you can reach into for that I use for alternating between. I mean, I use it for storage of things like light bulbs, but I also use it for current projects I'm working on at home because you need to store things in bins, and sometimes you just want to be supplies, sometimes you want to be an actual everything you need for a project. But the way that I identify that it's for a project is I put sticky on
Mhm.
each one that's a project. I put they're all red bins, and so I put a yellow sticky on each one that's a project, and that way I can instantly see, oh, I have like 7 projects going on. And
Mhm.
I get to a point where I have so many projects that I realize I need to reel it in and I need to finish one project so I before I start a new one, because you don't want to be that that person who only starts projects and never finishes them.
Right. It can be really encouraging. We do love our post-it notes. We like to put them on everything. And I'm seeing some great post-it note. I guess you maybe can't see that, but for example, there's a bag here that has a sticky note on it with the tape, which is how we do it at Big Rocks too. Framed fan picks and framed glass, alternate uni objects. I'm sure that makes sense to them. I don't totally know what that means at the top of my head, but that way, even though it's in an opaque bag, you know what it is.
Here's another one for sewing machine covers. So you don't need to have a label maker.
Great.
People kind of want to spend money on shiny new objects like label makers, but all you really need is Post-it and maybe a piece of tape, unless they're super sticky Post-it.
And that can also be maybe even specifically in a room where you're doing creative projects. Those things might change a lot. That bag might be used for something else in 2 weeks. So not having to take the label maker label off and just having that sort of easy to change up Post-it note situation. You found
Another thing
another
that's helpful is in the closet here where there's a bunch of easels and canvases
one.
and screens, there's this note here just explaining that there's 2 large ones and 2 small ones and 3 plastic bin lids. And so that way you don't have to go digging through the closet to know what your inventory is.
Yeah. Inventory too is something that when I'm feeling particularly uninspired and I don't know what I want to do next, that's an activity that I'll go through and kind of take inventory of what I have. And maybe sometimes that's I have this easel or I have all these paints or I have this vintage bicycle horn. I could do something with that. Whatever it is, that sort of can be inspiring and also can be one of those situations where you're like, oh, I actually don't need 17 Jello molds.
Yeah.
I've had them for 2 years, haven't had a project idea for them. I could probably give them away or something like that. And even like writing those things down sometimes, like what do I have access to, can be really helpful for your creative process and your organizing process.
Or if you're shopping and you have your list maybe on your phone or on paper of what you already have, then you don't buy duplicates.
Yeah. And y'all are creative people, so you might not need every single little tool for every single little thing. You might be able to figure out how you can use your rotary cutter for many different things, or maybe you can rig something up, and that can be part of the fun too. You might not need a million different tools. You might. Hard to say. So are there any questions in the room?
Yeah, or resources or ideas. I did also want to share that the Beaverton High School, they take donated art supplies for their arts classes, and I think other school districts do too.
That's great. Yeah.
And it's
Those
that time of year with all the school supply drives. So
yeah.
Another thing that Liv does that's helpful is she keeps all of their bags and all the mailers and bags together in this tote bag so that it's really easy if they want to mail anything, they probably already have the perfect size package, or if they want to give a gift,
That's right.
a little bag for a little gift, or a larger bag for a larger gift, or one of those wine-shaped bags for a wine-shaped gift.
I would like if we could to go back for a second so I could ask a question of the audience. Victoria, super curious what soul collage cards are and what kind of supplies you would need for that. Everything else to me is like, okay, yeah, I get that. And I saw that. I was like, what is
Soul
that?
collage is a very interesting thing that you can create, and then it brings insights. It's sort of like almost like divination, but you take pictures out of magazines, images, things that really resonate with you, not too much thought involved, just on a gut level. And then you start putting them together on a 5x7 mat board and see what the message is for you. People do them around like archetypes and different themes. It's fun to do them with a group and then talk about them and see what you've learned. And it's really a creative visual process. It's fun. But you need all kinds of like scissors and cutting boards and mat board and frames and all that kind of stuff. Not to mention gazillion magazines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, we have one like box of, or bag, sorry, of collage materials. And just as a shout out, Reclaim It does sell collage packs. They're like in these, they look like this, in these, what
Those are
would you
so
call those?
cool.
Clear page protectors, and it's just a collection of things. Sometimes they have a theme, sometimes they don't. But if you're looking to get into collage without necessarily buying boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff, that's a good, fun place to start. I think I personally like to have a wide, shallow drawer for those things when I'm doing collage, so that they can kind of all just move around, kind of like a big tray, but if it's a drawer, that's ideal. Otherwise, if you want to have it sort of like you were talking about before in the vertical storage, so you can flip through. And a lot of these like processes that we do, it's fun to kind of have the mess while you're making the thing. But as long as you're able to like, you know, reclaim your kitchen table from this fun, messy project at the end of the day, then it'll be more fun and easier to do all of the different things you need to do. And it's okay if like you're making a mess while you're working. That's number one why we want to have like really simple put away options, but also giving yourself, I like to work on a tray often, just like a big food tray or whatever that is, or whatever it looks like, to kind of contain what I'm working on. And then it's easier for me to bring that back to all of my containers and put things away from there. And then I don't lose things all over the place. But
And if you don't have a dedicated crafting space that's as big as this, maybe you only have the option to have something like a rolling caddy with shelves on it that you can have your crafting stuff on it. And then when you're not using, and maybe you're using it at the kitchen table, and when you're not using it, it can go into a closet or somewhere. It can just roll away out of sight.
Out of sight.
Karen, I'm curious, do you put your supplies away at the end of every working session, or how do you typically work?
That's a great question. That is always my goal. I like to put everything away at the end of my working session, personally, because I don't have a dedicated craft space. I sleep in the same room that I make things in. So for me, it's a lot. It's just nice to have like a real division, like even timing wise, between those activities, like sleeping, doing work versus making things. It can be pretty annoying to, I'm going to put all this stuff away now that I'm done for the day, but that's what really works for me. That way I make sure that I also take good care of my supplies, because if I have the idea that like I'm going to come back to this tomorrow, then I'm probably less likely to really wash out my brushes and like collect all my sewing pins or whatever that looks like. And then it's easier to kind of fall into not taking care of my supplies if I leave them out. So that's what works for me. If different people have different spaces and needs, but I think that can usually be a good division of your time.
I personally, I feel like if I leave my stuff out for a project, then it's a signal to my husband that he could do the same thing, which I want to stop that right in its tracks.
Okay.
So I set a good example by putting everything away so that he doesn't end up leaving stuff all over the house.
I love that. It's like not leaving your backpack by the door or dropping things on the dining room table as you enter the house.
kind of like camping. You want to pack it all out with you, leave the space better than you found it.
Yeah, campsite rule.
And then eventually you can make it even better by, hanging your artwork on the wall. But while things are still in progress, I like to, it's helpful to put them away. Does, any other, I don't know what time it is.
We're at 5:37. Let's see if we have any questions. Jill asked, where do you put your projects when you're working on them?
Like a work in progress. Or while I'm physically
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, but where you store your projects, like where you tuck them away when you're done for the day.
yeah. So personally, I have a flat file set of drawers that I got for free on Buy Nothing. But so it's those
Those are amazing.
wide flat drawers, and a lot of people will put their finished your photographs or whatever in those spaces, in those drawers. I think that's my phone off camera that is ringing. Sorry. But that's also where I would put my work in progress. Maybe I have kind of one of those drawers dedicated to things that are still in progress. And then it is sort of like just this big tray. And if I have, some little pieces of something that I haven't glued down yet, they can go in that big drawer. But if I wanted to have like a bin for each work in progress, like I was mentioning earlier, maybe you have a set number of things that you can have going at the same time. That's probably where I would keep all my materials for that project.
Yeah, flat files are really fantastic, and I think a lot of people don't know about them. So if your medium is drawing or painting or anything that's flat, you should really look it up because they're a great tool.
They're really
I
good.
can't believe you got yours for free. That's
No,
amazing.
it's pretty. I have realized now that was a miracle. I also like to keep all my tools in that. That's not always what they're used for, but I like to. That way, I'm able to kind of see everything at once. So it's nice to have just sort of a single layer, and I can pull the drawer all the way out, and then there's all my different types of scissors for different things, and here's my different adhesives or
And
So-
we have a picture of your flat file in the amazing blog that you wrote on this same topic. So we'll share that in the email that goes out afterwards as well.
Yes.
And
Yes,
there's
I will-
something that you made to hold, was it brushes or different tools?
Oh yeah, the one that I have, I didn't make. I got someone was giving it away, but it's sort of just like a piece of fabric with a fold over, like one long pocket, but then stitched so that it has like sort of inch wide miniature pockets. So that's where I keep all my brushes, paint brushes, and then you can roll it up. They have things similar to like knives.
Like knife storage, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Really similar to that. So you can find, they do sell them at art supply stores. It's also a really good way to use up some of your fabric scrap if you wanted to make one yourself. If you're a sewer, it's a fun project. And you could put like a ribbon stitched around it if you wanted to tie it closed, but you don't have to. You don't have to.
Did you already talk to about the baseball card holders? Or
Oh,
business
yeah.
card? That's one of the favorite tips that you shared in your blog. One of my favorite tips.
Yeah. I love to use like a binder with page protectors in it, like the ones that you can put in, the 3-hole punched. And that's also a place where I'll put in smaller pieces of a work in progress potentially. But they also make them baseball card size, and they make them the size of like a photo slide. And I guess they also make one that are the size of like a printout photo. There's all different kind of configurations of these clear plastic page protectors. So with the smaller ones, I love to put like small pieces that I have if I'm working on a collage or if I cut cut out like individual letters for something, having those different sizes so that I can kind of flip through my repertoire of collage pieces, but also great for if you use like, I mean, kind of as if you were doing, if you had a collection and you were keeping like your stamp collection in those sort of things. That also works for different mediums as well. Or if you have like, I've used them to in a dye class when we were learning what all the different like natural dyes would do and how they interact and all the different like after baths you can put them in. Then we had like a small piece of fabric stapled to a small piece of paper, and then those went into the individual like slide sheets, and that way you could be like, oh, I want an orange, like this is how I got this orange in the past. So if you have paint samples that you use a lot and you want to have those kind of accessible to you, or like paint mixing recipes, I guess, having those little examples can be great when you just want to flip through.
It's a great idea. And speaking of the 3-ring binders, Jean Harkin has several that she can donate to anyone who needs any. And then Sue says that Michael's had or has a cart, which is a rolling frame with 5 or 6 trays, and you can lift the trays out in and out of the frame. So that could be somewhere to keep projects too.
Yeah, bring it with you when you need. That's great. Yeah, and binders are abundant at thrift stores and yard sales, so maybe none of us ever has to buy a new binder ever again. We can get a second one.
Maybe indeed.
Maybe. Let's see. Anybody else have
Yeah. And what about blanks? Can you tell us about
blanks?
your theory on blanks? Like notebooks can be so enticing for many of us with that creamy paper. It's got a beautiful cover. Suddenly we have 39 of them or more.
And people, people are always giving out journals for, it's got the bank name on it or something, all these little pads of paper. And then we end up with like, 3 pages written in it and then on to the next one. That's another situation where for me, having the unused or blanks versus the in progress versus the finished, having a real clear separation of that is important to me. I think someone might be home. And so I keep all of my unused like paper, folders, envelopes, stationery, and notebooks and journals and sketchbooks. If I compile them, I keep all the blanks together, and then I don't go in there unless I have finished another sketchbook. And I think probably like a lot of us, I usually have, a journal and a sketchbook and a calendar, or whatever those kind of different categories are. But, they shouldn't overlap. I don't want to write my calendar things or my to-do lists in my sketchbook. But so I do typically have more than one, but I only have one of each kind at a time. If that makes sense. And those would be sort of in the works in progress or kind of like I keep them on my nightstand. Those items that I'm actively working in. And then once I finish one, I'll put it into my sort of archive of existing sketchbooks and notebooks. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious if folks have specific questions about their arts and crafts supply situation.
Stand with you while we wait.
Waiting in solidarity. Jill says that she loves Lazy Susans. We do too. They're so handy for many things.
That's another thing you can often find at thrift stores, just saying. But
We've got 3 Lazy Susans here.
yeah, we could just start spinning.
We could just spin all.
What?
Oh, that's also Lazy Susans.
Well, or maybe I'm just turning it. I think it's supposed to. Turns pretty smoothly. Yeah. It's
I'm
great.
curious if other folks in the audience have storage solutions for your arts and crafts supplies that haven't been shared tonight that you'd like to share with the group.
One that I wanted to mention that actually I learned about at one of our clients' houses. For there's some like sculpture tools here, but for sometimes there's like the long pokey. It's just a.
Dental tools?
It's kind of like a dental tool, but for clay or sculpting, and they kept it in a travel toothbrush holder. It's really sharp, so it's hard to, figure out where you want to keep it. But it's things like that in a travel toothbrush holder that are maybe a little gentle or not gentle, a little fragile and or potentially dangerous. That's a good way to.
It's a great idea. We have a question in the chat, which folks are resonating. It's resonating with them. Where can I find a therapist who will come to my house and guide me through the trauma of decluttering my stuff? LOL.
That's us. We're not therapists, but we are pretty cool.
We're good listeners and we're empathetic.
That's true.
Empathic? Maybe both?
It's our superpower. Yeah, I think that it can be a super emotional process to go through, especially like when people have shifts in like the amount of time or like what's accessible to them, and like you're thinking about like I used to be able to make a painting every month. I don't know, whatever that looks like. When that kind of shifts, it can be really emotional to go through your stuff, and that's something that I always like really marvel at our project managers about. At Big Rocks is they're really good at like coming alongside you in that emotional process, as well as just like the really practical, like this can go here, this can go here. Because it can be hard to do that on your own, and it can be maybe hard for just anyone to understand that that's going to be an emotional and difficult process.
Yeah, some clients really like to talk through their emotions when they're working with us, and it makes us better at helping them because we understand, we have an idea of what they're going through and what their concerns are and what their worries are, and we can really hold their hand through it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we realize it's not just about the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And Betsy is confirming that you are cool. Thank you, Betsy. We think you're cool as well. Jean Harkin wrote, Big Rocks has helped me clean out garage storage and also my photography room / closet. And she highly recommends us. Thank you, Jean. That's really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. And you don't have to, you can find people that can help you, even if it's not us. And you don't have to settle for someone who's gonna just be like ruthless and not listen to how you feel about your things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not have someone bulldoze you. And if somebody truly does need an organizer who has a mental health background, we have a couple in our back pocket for clients who need maybe more assistance from that perspective that we can provide. So we're happy to share that referral with folks who need it. And Sue is sharing a tip. Sue puts her paintbrushes rolled up in a matchstick placemat rolled up, and it leaves them still able to air dry. That's a really good tip.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was
Kind of like maybe like a sushi mat.
matches, but I think I know what you
Like
mean.
made out of vertical reeds.
Kind of like I think that's
That's
what
what
I'm
I'm sure.
picturing.
Yeah.
That is then you sort of have that airflow still, so they can dry nice.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah,
That's smart.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like those long matches that you light fires with.
light fires with
With short matches too, it's true. I learned a lot about matches today.
Yeah. I know that some like painting teachers that I've encountered in the past have really specific, like, I never store my brushes upright because the water will get into the things like that. So you might, I guess I don't have a strong opinion on that, but yeah, being able to keep them vertical while they're drying is probably, or horizontal.
Mhm.
Horizontal.
I think Leilani shared that tip for makeup brushes too when we talked about organizing bathrooms. So it's definitely transferable. Sue writes that she bought the placemat at Freddy's or Fred Meyer and got the idea from a paint book. Very cool.
Yeah, does anyone have like books or I don't know, even like Instagram accounts or people that other artists that they find inspiring or that they get good ideas from?
Yeah, it would be fun to see if people shared their accounts or portfolio sites. I mean, we could all see each other's work.
Drop
That would be
something.
fun. I know, Karin, you mentioned in your blog someone that you follow and there's certain rules that resonate with you.
Oh yeah, it's a like an art historical artist, Sister Korea Kent. If you know about her, she has sort of she did a lot of work. She was a former nun, maybe she always a nun. She worked with like children and made a lot of work that was kind of related to pop art and like packaging and marketing, but also had a lot of really good thoughts and words for artists and creatives and how to think about your creative process. And one thing that I mentioned in the blog is one of her like rules is to separate the I can't think of the exact words right now, but basically like the analytical mind versus the creative mind, like the critic and the artist, kind of keeping those as separate spaces even in your mind so that um, you're not trying to decide if this is a really great idea or what all the implications are when you're making the work necessarily. You also don't need to be like judging yourself for how quickly you put away or don't put away your things while you're working. And the more like basic and simple and usable your systems for keeping your things are, the less sort of stressed about that you need to be while you're journaling, while you're someone mentioned sort of that intuitive like collage making and how a lot that can just be really formative. So I think yeah, keeping the inner critic away while you're doing those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's essential because that is, you want the creative process to be joyful. And if you are censoring yourself or criticizing your work while you're doing it, or even the way you go about your work, like if you have a messy studio or something, then you can associate your creative work with shame, and then you're not going to do much more creative work.
Yeah. Or you might not allow yourself to be creative until you feel like your space is organized. It's like sometimes you feel like you have to do your homework before you can express that joy or have that pleasure. So if we just want to let people know that like that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Jean says separating your critical from your creative mind works well for all creativity, including writing. And Sue shares that she's a photographer and a former programmer, left and right brain, LOL. In writing, you are told not to write and edit simultaneously.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Wise.
We have time for maybe one or two questions or comments.
Do we have any?
I'm just going to take a very pregnant pause and allow people space, see if they have specific questions or comments that they want to share. I'm not seeing any hands.
This has got to be an art project because it's so ready to be used.
I just pulled it out from under the
okay.
yeah, but this would be a good style for certain things, and I think it was originally like a spice rack.
Yeah.
Spice.
We have a question or comment from Jill.
I really truly love the idea of the inventory and I'll put it on my closet doors so that I know what's behind closet door number 1 or 2.
Door number 1.
Yeah, like this.
That's great. Yeah.
Got some positive comments coming in from the chat. Thank you, folks. We're glad that this has been helpful to everyone. Next month in September, we're going to focus on the creepy crawly spaces, basements, attics, and storage units. Oh my. So tune in the first Tuesday in September from 5 to 6 p.m. right after Labor Day for that one. And if you have a basement, attic, or storage unit that you would like us to film from, or you'd be willing to let us film from, please reach out to us. We'd be honored to do that. Any last questions or comments for Maddie or Karin, y'all? Marianne says, thank you for the useful information. You're most welcome. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your beautiful summer evening wherever you are.
Go make something. We're done.
Yes, go do something creative, make something. And Maddie and Karin, thank you so much for being our co-host tonight and sharing your tips and tricks and tools. So I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and take care.